and people really came at you about this thing. What did you make of this entire debacle of you plagiarizing a sermon?
He's walking up to his
walking by with his thug friends.
Yeah, man.
The people love me. Jesus stood there,
Jesus stayed silent, for he knew the will of the Father.
Because Jesus knew that the Father would have to treat Jesus like Barabbas, so they could treat Barabbas like Jesus.
I called the church. I called the youth directors. I said, hey, look, if people wanted to know the full story, like out of all the people that made videos about me, only one person got on the phone with me. Did I preach Judah Smith's Jesus Loving Barabbas sermon?
Ruslan.
Okay, so you talked about friendly fire. You tend to get a lot of friendly fire, unfortunately. Recently, you were indirectly viral for a sermon you preached, and I only saw 1 or 2 Instagrams chop you up in a closing point you were making, and then chopping it up from an older sermon that Judah Smith made from, I don't know, 10 years ago or something like that.
Yeah.
And people really came at you about this thing, which I'll reserve my thoughts. I've shared them with you offline, but I reserve my thoughts until towards the end of this. What happened, and what did you make of this entire debacle of you plagiarizing a sermon?
Did I preach Judah Smith's Jesus Loving Barabbas sermon? Yes, I did. I did. And it's like, that's where it ends. Just yes. Thanks for watching. No. So yes, I did. But I think people blow the story out of proportion, which that's the internet. That's the internet. But I do want to clarify. I was not trying to pawn it off as my own. I was not trying to pawn it as if it was my words. Like Judah Smith preaching Jesus Loving Barabbas, one of the most popular sermons in millennial culture. So what was happening was, we started having guests on back in like 2024, the end of 2024, November, December. We booked Judah to come on in February. So we'd had him on the book for months. And so it was great.
And you go to his Wednesday night LA Bible study, right?
Yeah, I go to church home. It's once a month. It's the last Wednesday every month. I go to church home.
Yep.
And so we had him booked for a few months. So I was like, great. Well, January comes around. I'm preaching at Elevation Church, their youth night, their gathering in January. It was great, amazing. They were great hosts. I'm there. I had this whole thing prepped that I felt like God had laid on my heart. And then I was getting alone about 15, 20 minutes before they kicked off the night with worship, and I felt like I was supposed to scrap it. So I go, okay, I felt like God wanted me to scrap the sermon I prepped.
The entire talk you had prepared, you felt like the Lord was saying, hey, I want you to go a different direction.
So the way they structured it was like an interview. It was the 2 youth directors, and then it was me, and then Trenton Jackson. He owns Jesus Loves You Co. So we were talking about like preaching the gospel in different spheres of influence of space. And then they gave me the back half 10 minutes to talk about Jesus. And I had this message prepared, and it was kind of long, and I was worried. I like to honor, like if you invite me into your house, like I'm going to honor the time that you give me. And it was kind of long, and I felt like God wanted me to scrap it. Now, so I'm like, okay. So then I felt laid on my heart, like, oh, well, I felt like I was supposed to preach the Jesus Loving Barabbas sermon. It was something that had changed my life, transformed my perspective of Jesus from someone that has had father wounds and the way that Jesus is a loving father. I'm like, dang, this sermon is lit. And so I'm like, all right, I feel like I'm supposed to preach this. So the church staff was aware. Time was up, went up, preached, came back. And as soon as we got back there, I was talking to the church staff, and I'm like, yeah, guys, like, thanks for letting me come. I just want to let you guys know, though, that like that wasn't my sermon. I preached this Jesus Loving Barabbas sermon. The staff knew, like the guys that were there, they knew. The youth directors, they knew. Everything was cool. A couple weeks later, Judah comes on. We record the episode. In the first 2 minutes of the episode, I'm like, hey, dude, I just want you to know, Jesus Loving Barabbas sermon has encouraged me so much. Anytime I need like a quick elevator pitch gospel or, something, or like if I'm at a church and I feel led by the Lord, I'll share that if it's like a certain, a shortened time slot.
So you outed yourself.
Yeah, I flat out, because I wasn't hiding anything and I wasn't trying to pawn it off on myself. And so I'm looking at him like, yeah, man, this is what I did. And he was encouraging me. Out of his mouth, something along the lines of like, he was like, you probably did it better than I did it or whatever. And he was encouraging and he loved it. And he's a great friend, and we text and all this stuff. And it's great. Well, we posted this teaser video of me, Josh, and Judah dancing. And this is where it all started right here, was this guy commented, wait a second. And then he made the first video clip, splicing the two things. And then everybody else was making all these videos, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And so
all along, you had already said, I use this when I'm sharing Jesus with people.
And the episode didn't even come out yet. The episode hadn't come out yet, and people were already making their judgments. The church, the youth directors knew, everything knew. And so it was going out. So the only thing I did was I called the church. I called the youth directors. I said, hey, look, I just want to make sure you guys are okay. I'm sorry if I indirectly hurt you guys. I know there's a lot of stuff going on the internet, but I just want you to know, even though I shared with you guys afterwards, like, hey, I did this and you guys were aware, I just want to apologize in case I hurt. And they were super awesome and cool, and everything was cool. But so many people were making reaction videos, but no one reached out to me to ask me what the real story was. And I think that's like the issue I have with the internet. It's like, how are we going to make videos about scenarios we don't know the full story to? And the episode didn't even air. And even after it aired, people didn't care. And so then a bunch of people thought I had bought the sermon off the internet and I didn't know Judah. I'm like, yo, what? Like, so many people were saying like, oh, Bryce bought like a packet of sermons and like preached this sermon. This was one of them that, they recycle sermons. And so.
And to be fair, there are pastors that do buy like sermon outlines. But they're not.
Oh yeah,
they're not. That's not that. Like, it's not a. We're gonna preach someone's thing word for word. It's a sermon outline they're getting.
Yeah.
So that does happen. But
that does happen.
That's not what.
That was not the case. Then other people were saying that I'm an insecure communicator and like this and that. And no, it's not that I'm an insecure communicator. It's like I genuinely felt like that's where the Lord was leading me. Could I have been wrong? Yes. Do I know if I was wrong? I don't know. Things got blown out of proportion. Like, I don't know. But I consulted my mentors and things like that. And I was like, do I make a response? And again, it goes back to the thing I said to you earlier. Like, if people wanted to know the full story, like out of all the people that made videos about me,
they could have just tapped in.
Only one person got on the phone with me and apologized and took the video down. And was I didn't even ask him to take the video down. I was just telling him like, hey, like this is what was going on, blah, blah, blah. And then he just like felt bad, and it was cool. And he's a super nice guy and great and things like that. I don't have any issue with people that like, I'm not mad at anyone that makes a video or whatever, but like to clear the air, like, and it's like I said to you earlier, like, why would I try to pawn off one of the most popular sermons in millennial culture ever when I'm preaching at a church that is pretty popular on the internet and it's being live streamed? Like, why would I try to do that? Like, I'm not. That just doesn't make any sense.
One of the most popular churches in America, one of the biggest youth groups.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Why would I do that on their live stream? That makes absolutely no sense. And so, I totally understand where people could get that.
Yeah.
But I want to clear the air. People still have their opinions, and that's totally okay. You can have your opinions, but yeah, he's a great friend, and it obviously didn't change our relationship because we still text, we still love each other, and he's a great friend, and so.
Yeah, I think if I see it like sampling in hip hop music. Like, I think if you sample a throwback record and maybe some people take a sample and they'll chop it up and they'll really freak it. You won't even know that it's sampled from the original source. Other people take a sample and literally just loop the thing.
Yeah.
Right? And so like a buddy of mine, Paul Russell, he had a song called Lil Boo Thing.
Okay.
And so he sampled like a classic record and basically just looped it, you know, you my little boo. And so it's like, it's the record with drums over it. Or I think they may have replayed a version of it. Long story short, like if you're getting permission to sample a record, I don't think Paul has to come on and say, hey, by the way, this is the song from back in the day. Like, it's like, no. He got permission to do that. Right. And I think there's an aspect of when it's your pastor, when it's your homie, you have an understanding that it's okay to do that.
Yeah.
I don't quite understand what the big deal is, because it's just like sampling in hip hop. It's just like repurposing something where there's clearly creative license to do something like that. And so people don't know this, and I'll out myself. I spoke at Liberty University, 8,500 students. My opening was directly from a similar opening that my pastor gave. My pastor, who I was like, hey, I think I'm going to use some of this. He's like, dude, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Tweaked it. He worked with me on it. And my entire opening was very similar, if not, I don't know if it's word for word the same, but it was very close to the same illustration that I used.
Yeah.
But if that's my pastor, he knows, he understands, we have relationship, there's rapport.
Right.
He's celebrating me. Anyone trying to dig up the clip and then find his original sermon and slice it back and forth, like, I just think it's just kind of silly to me. Not to mention that like I'm saying, this is my pastor's a deep cut. You're using one of the most popular sermons, like you said, within online like YouTube culture, and people are thinking that you're trying to pawn it off as your own. Now, I guess you can get into the technicalities of like, well, is it ethical? Should I have in front of Liberty University said, by the way, I got this from my pastor, Pastor Jeff Morris from the church? Like, that's a different question.
That is a really different question.
That's a different question, right? When do we cite? When do we not cite? I have a joke that my buddy Rufat wrote, and he put in his book, in a book that he got published, and he told me like, hey man, because we have the same origin story. We're both refugees, both from the same city. And my buddy Rufat, who's not a Christian, by the way, he's like an atheist, new agey comedian, has always been like, hey man, like all my material about like our origin story, free game for you, use it however you want.
Yeah.
We'll get together, we'll write some stuff together. Like if you want to work in some stand-up comedy stuff, you can. By all means, have at it.
Yeah.
Like sometimes I cite him when I drop the joke. Sometimes I don't cite him when I drop the joke, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the issue, is that people always think that when something is being communicated, that is always from one mind or one source. Oftentimes people have help on their talks. They have help on their sermons. They have help on their illustrations. They have people, they have teams that help them craft these things, right? So it's like if you're pulling on something that you're inspired by, you have a relationship with the person. I personally thought the entire thing was blown out of proportion. I think I even commented on one of the Instagram posts of like, that's his homie. Like he was just on his podcast. Like they're homies. Like, what are you talking about? You know?
Yeah, it really did nothing but cause strife and division. Like one of them said like, it had like a vote thing in the comment section, like who did it? It was like, who stole it? Was it Judah's sermon? Was it Bryce's sermon, or neither? And I voted Judah's sermon. Like I voted on the comment section because I'm not hiding anything, and I thought it was funny. But yeah, I mean, and even this is what I love. Like my mentors, there's like little one-liners or things like that they've said that I use, and this and that and the other. And even Judah, all of their heart postures were, man, keep going. Gospel's going forth. You keep going. And I'm like, man, like, yes, I understand the silent thing, but even the guys that communicated these things, or the people that I learned this from, their heart posture isn't, well, shoot, man, you didn't tell them that I said it, or you didn't do that. They're like, Judah literally said, man, you probably did it better than me. Keep going, bro. Keep using it. Man,
yeah, because awesome. I think anyone that is a communicator, in my opinion, understands that those things aren't really from us, even if there's a team that's helping us craft a talk or set something up. They're not from us, ultimately, they're from God. And so to me, if and when someone does use something of mine or say something I say regularly on a stream and they use it in a talk, I would be flattered by that.
Right.
I would be extremely flattered and honored by that. That means
it's fire.
Right?
Yeah, that's the best compliment ever.
Yeah.
If someone said, I'm like, dang.
Yeah. So I didn't understand it, and it just seemed like friendly fire. People are out for blood. You know, and they just they're smelling the blood in the water, and like this week we're gonna make fun of Bryce.
Yeah,
I was repulsed by it.
I mean, yeah, it's all blown out of proportion. The only thing I did feel bad for, and I will own and apologize, is like there are people that have been hurt by the fact that, oh, well, this was copied and this and that, because then there's a part of it that's like, oh, if this was copied, does that mean it's genuine? And so I do understand that, and I apologize if it indirectly hurt anyone of them thinking that, oh, is this genuine or not? So I do recognize that. I see that. I see how if you've been hurt in the past by that, like, man, I can recognize that. Yeah. And I apologize if I hurt you in that way. That was not my intent. But all the videos out there are just
I'm with you. I think I'm trying to get better at like citing people, even within YouTube videos. Like if I pull something from a Jonathan Peugeot or Jordan Peterson, or whatever, I'm trying to get better at citing stuff, just to cover my own tracks, so that no one can be like, oh, you, and it's like, no, like that's my homie. Like we had a conversation about how good of an argument or how good of a talk this was. Like he gets that I'm incorporating that, but as a desire for me to go above and beyond, so that someone can't even say that. Like, hey, I got this from Pastor Judah, you know, and then you're like you're citing your sources, you know. And when, like I just finished my first book, and that is something that I had to find my citations, but then there were things that I couldn't find that I cited. That I'm like, I think it's from here. And there was another person in the editorial process that came along and said, no, you actually thought you heard it from this person, but it's really this person, and fixed up my own citations.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so when you're doing something, I guess, more academic, and I would say what you were doing, in my opinion, was a bit less formal. Like you're speaking at a youth group, right? But when you're doing something more academic, like there are systems in place in a publishing world that made sure my bases were covered, so that there wasn't anything that snuck in that wasn't original for me, that was not properly cited.
Right.
Because I could get in trouble for that. I think that's different than you doing it, incorporating your buddy's talk in the middle of a live stream on a YouTube.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah, I mean, I think that is even citing stuff is a part of like living above reproach, like you said. Even if somebody wants to say something they couldn't. So that's something I'm trying to learn too. Yeah. But yeah, all those videos were just so blown out of proportion, and that again, the thing that broke my heart the most about it was like, if people really wanted to know the truth, they wouldn't have made videos causing division. They would have reached out to me. Yeah. So someone that made a video reached out to me, and then who also reached out to me, which shout out Allie Beth Stuckey. Mm-hmm. Without making a single reaction video, she DM'd me and said, "Hey, I just want to know, what is all this going on?" Mm-hmm. And I sent her a voice memo, basically just explaining everything. And she was super sweet about it. Mm-hmm. But she reached out to me offline before she even made a video. I don't even know if she made a video. Mm-hmm. But I was like, dang, that's super kind. I respect that a lot. So
props to Allie Beth Stuckey.
Shout out Allie Beth Stuckey.
Hey, that is just a clip from my over 2 hour long conversation with my man Bryce Crawford. So if you want to check out the full thing before it goes live, it's available right now with a free 7-day trial at our Patreon community. Link is pinned up in the comment section below. We get into a lot of heavy topics. Him sharing things about his family that he's never shared before, to why he almost took his life, and the constant onslaught of threats to him since his podcast and channel exploded. Then we got into some crazy blowback to mine and his Avengers episode on George Janko's podcast, orthodoxy with Catholicism versus Protestantism, and his response to being called out publicly on the Living Waters Ministry Instagram. So hit that link in the pinned comment, head over to Patreon, sign up for a free 7-day trial. You can watch the full pod. It's actually going to be 2 parts that we release here on YouTube, but you can see the full thing before anyone else. All right, I'll see you over there. Peace.